Today I'd like to start off my catastrophic events and lost knowledge presentations. Over the course of the next 2 months, I would like to present a 4-part presentation that covers 4 catastrophic event types that may have led to lost historical data on past cultures and civilizations. In our modern-day civilization, we have historical records going back several thousand years. The further back we go, the more this data becomes sketchy, difficult to verify what did and did not occur. Here we have the following 8 major disasters modern man has suffered through. As you can see on the top, in 1931, the China floods had up to 4 million dead, the largest of all. Another example are the 5 deadliest known tsunamis, and as you can see, in 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami claimed almost 228,000 lives. These are the photos or drawings of the aftermath of those tsunamis. So why are we lacking records on ancient past cultures and civilizations that preceded our current civilization on planet Earth? So think about it. In the upper left photo, we have an event. Let's call it event number 1. This event destroys a city. Those in that city are gone, but the entire planet can move on. Then we have event number 2. This event is 1 order of magnitude stronger than the first event, meaning it is 10 times more powerful in destruction. It destroys 10 cities. This is terrible, but as a planet, even as a nation and a state, humanity recovers. Now we have event 3. It is 2 orders of magnitude stronger than event 1. That means that 100 cities are destroyed. Pictured as a supervolcanic eruption, devastation is at a global level, catastrophic indeed, but can mankind survive? Yes. There would be major differences in how life continued, but we could adapt and continue forward. But now we have event number 4. This is 3 orders of magnitude stronger than the first event. It's catastrophic with worldwide losses. 1,000+ cities are destroyed, and its effects will take years to level off, returning the Earth's surface to livable levels. In some of these events, or even larger events, it is estimated that 99% of the human population perished. Other species, even possibly those that were human-like, did not survive, erased from the historical record. I'm sure you're asking yourself, where is he getting this data from? This data comes from ancient indigenous cultures from around the world. We'll go into specific details and cite several specific sources in this presentation and in the 3 to come. This timeline is during the currently known and accepted occupation of the species Homo sapiens sapiens. Notice the Archaic Period is on the far left, present day on the far right, with the blue box representing time that we have historical records for. Many of those records are hazy. Notice how small of a space it occupies on the timeline. Now notice I have included dates showing major period change events, most relating to geographical scientific data. The dates shown are in BP, meaning before present. January 1, 1950 is the commencement date for this measurement of time. This walks a path with radiocarbon dating that starts in this area and takes into consideration atomic bombs that were detonated in the atmosphere. If one of my first presentations I discussed the changing of the world symbol found in petroglyphs in detail, and that they showed a world change happening because of major catastrophic events occurring. This symbol is what the ancient indigenous people used to record an event of this magnitude. The tilt of the Earth's polar axis remains constant, but describes a circular path in space during a period known as the Great Year, or precession of the equinoxes. This time period is about 25,800 years. This is galactic time, and when you look at catastrophes taking place, they seem to fall around 25,800, 12,900, and 6,450 years, meaning something bad is taking place in a potential repeated pattern while Earth, the solar system, and the Milky Way are traveling around in space. We're losing records, history of past human occupation, maybe even other intelligent species occupation of Earth because of these cyclical time period catastrophic events. Every time something bad happens, humanity is plunged into another archaic period, a dark age. Some species, other civilizations were not so lucky. When you talk about major upheaval geologically and in catastrophic manner, almost anything on the planet's surface could have easily become lost to future civilizations. Also remember there have also been one-off catastrophic events. So the blue-looking explosions represent potential major catastrophes. Look where they fall on the timeline. I'm showing these three because potential evidence still exists for these having been collected. Now, the first catastrophic event that potentially occurs in a cyclical nature does not have extraterrestrial origins at all. As a matter of fact, this event originates in the center of our own planet. Consider the fact that the planet Earth is very much like many other structures in the universe, from an atom to a star to a complete galaxy. Everything has a nuclei that is the central structure upon what all else is built. If a star and a galaxy give off neutral matter, which explodes as it becomes energized, we're discussing such particles as photons, neutrons, and neutrinos. So why not planets as well? This concept would make more sense for why catastrophic events occur on a somewhat set schedule. Think about what the repercussions would be if something disrupted the Earth's inner electromagnetic structure. It's like shutting down the dynamo effect for a very short period, but enough to cause major catastrophic events. So with matter escaping from the inner core to the outer core in an irregular manner, there's a literal atomic explosion inside the center of the Earth. Rotation of the planet would stop for just a moment in galactic time. Consider that time 12 hours or less. Unfortunately, those results would be catastrophic. A book titled The Adam and Eve Story was written back in the early 1960s by Chauncey Thomas. It discussed what would happen if this type of event took place. Chan, short for Chauncey, pulled from many scientists that had many different backgrounds. Some of those scientists were André de Luc, Georges Cuvier, Dolomieu, and Christian von Buch. He also was fond of taking from Professor Frank C. Hibben. What is also very interesting about this book is all the misinformation about it. Most people have been told or believe that the book was pulled off shelves and classified by the Central Intelligence Agency. Almost every website online incorrectly states this. First, this book was never classified top secret by the CIA and removed from the public. What happened was someone filed a Freedom of Information Act on what the CIA had on Thomas. Well, his book happened to be in the file they had, so they released it. This made people incorrectly believe it was classified. The book has always been available. It was just hard to come by. Also, Thomas added to it years later and brought it out in another version of the book. More than likely, Chan had requested to work for the Central Intelligence Agency, and he was being background checked, so they had his book. What's interesting, and no one has really discussed this, was that someone in the CIA updated the book, changing parts of it, adding to it, or subtracting from the original. They made corrections to the book, showing that the agency was quite interested in what Chan wrote about, and at least someone there believed what he stated was the cause and effect for such a catastrophic event. Also interesting to note, Chan Thomas was hired by Dr. Robert M. Wood in 1966 to work for McDonnell Douglas. They hired him because he was a psychic that apparently could communicate with aliens. Some of those at McDonnell Douglas believe Chan could assist them in learning how to properly get out of Earth's orbit for a future space launch, just like UFOs. This was confirmed by Jacques Vallée and then again in 2008 in a MUFON article. This is the author. The CIA believed his explanation for the geophysical mechanism that allows pole shifts to happen. When you break down his work, he was stating that Earth's crust only remains strong enough to avoid a pole shift when the Earth's magnetic field is strong. When it breaks down, the massive amount of ice weight on the poles causes the land holding the ice weight to shift and slip, pulling everything around the globe with it. I'm not going to go into the mechanics of this being possible, since that would require 2 or 3 days with me. But discussing this, one other thing about Chan, between 1974 and 1993, he was basically nowhere to be found. Well, guess who his employer at that time most likely was? The CIA. This is found on the very first page of the Adam and Eve story. We're immediately made aware of the geological makeup of our planet. On the original version of the book, page 24 discusses where the physical North Pole was located, giving time periods in BP. Again, I'm not speaking of magnetic north. I'm talking about the physical North Pole. It may be hard to believe. I still consider the implications of such a model. But when you consider the fact that if the Earth quit rotating for several hours, this does not mean the wind stops. It means that you have 1,000 plus mile per hour winds, followed by tsunamis we could never fathom, followed by activations of most volcanoes, most supervolcanoes and earthquakes that couldn't even be measured. The sound itself coming from beneath our feet and above our heads would be deafening. The speeds of the wind would shred almost everything in its path into nothingness. 99+% of our civilization would be wiped out, leaving the pockets of survivors in another dark age, not being able to start over for hundreds of years, just trying to survive until events on the surface subside. So I'm throwing these in too. These are 2 photos that show the location of ancient Sumerian cities of Nippur on the left and Uruk on the right. I'm showing these so that you understand how difficult it is to locate ancient remains. As you can see by looking around in the photos, there seems to be nothing extending out into the desert of Iraq for miles. Yet a massive civilization flourished here thousands of years ago. In the book, The Sumerians by Samuel Kramer, he goes on to tell his readers that no one knew about Sumerians until the mid-1800s. Nobody knew they existed. Their civilization lost to modern day man. Yet eventually their culture and civilization was rediscovered. Today we cite this civilization as being one of the oldest known to current man, and did not even realize that their discovery was recently and accidental. See, archaeologists were looking for the Assyrians mentioned in the Bible. Neither the Greeks, Hebrew, or Egyptians of ancient times had any knowledge of the existence of the people or language of Sumer. It just did not exist. The mention of Sumer had been erased from the memory of man for several thousand years. And at first, scientists and historians refused to believe that a new, lost ancient civilization had been located. Again, we're talking about the mid-1800s. Did you know that the only reason we deciphered Sumerian language and text was because we had already deciphered Semitic Akkadian, known in earlier days as Assyrian or Babylonian, which was also written in cuneiform script. The key to Sumerian script was just found in Old Persian, an Indo-European tongue. But again, this goes to show lost historical data showing that we know very little about the past. Those in the past were tracking some event in this petroglyph, as you can see. If not the one that we're talking about by means of catastrophic event, then possibly another type. And remember, multiple catastrophic events have occurred while humans populated the planet. Prior to this, other races we are no longer aware of may have also suffered the same fate, being erased from history on the planet. This concludes part 1 of the series. Stay tuned for the 3 future presentations. Stay tuned for potential worldwide catastrophic events caused by the sun's disruptions, Venus, and an event coming from the center of the galaxy.